Jupiter at night. It's filmed right on the internet in front of a live audience. It's Jupiter at night.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Jupiter at Night. My name is Chris.
My name is Heather.
Hey, Heather, and of course, you're also well known around here as Mars Base. Yep, in our chat room. And now you've been on the show a couple of times, and we've had some epic science episodes. And I think was it your first episode that we did where we talked about finding life somewhere in the solar system, life and soul? I think we searching for life and soul. Yeah, that's what it was. And we talked real briefly about the possibility of life on Mars. But that kind of just scratched my little nerd itch that I have back here about traveling and getting to Mars. And so tonight we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the practical issues of leaving Earth, traveling through space, and getting to Mars. With that said, the first thing I thought we should lead with, because you were talking a little bit about this in our pre-show on the live stream, and to be honest with you, I had no idea that some of these things started hitting you so fast. So pretty much as soon as we get up into zero G, we start having issues.
Oh, yeah.
What's our first one?
The human body was designed for gravity. So, there's a certain amount of differential pressure gradients in your blood, your blood pressure, between your head and your feet when you're standing up.
Yeah, so it's designed to get blood to certain spots that normally would have to, fight and to get to and stuff, right?
Yeah, well, the blood pressure in your head is a lot lower than it is in your feet. Blood pools in your feet. Has to work a lot harder. It's got everything above it reaching down to it. So once you remove that, the blood starts redistributing throughout your whole body because there's not that pressure. Everything is treated equally.
Oh my gosh. Now, if you're watching the video version, we have a graphic here, and it almost the top of your body almost balloons up. So is it a visual thing that can say astronauts on the International Space Station, do they feel like they've gotten bulkier in their chest?
A lot of times they'll, visually their face will be a lot puffier.
I just always thought that's because their fat was floating, to be honest.
Blood.
Yeah.
Well, because that blood goes to your head, it kind of equalizes throughout your body, the blood pressure. So your head's seeing a higher blood pressure than it normally would.
Right.
Which means that your brain is saying, whoa, too much blood pressure, too much blood. We got to cut down on blood volume. So you can lose as much as 22% within 2 to 3 days of being in space.
Within 2 to 3 days, your brain just shuts down blood production. Yeah. And so you kind of do even out a little bit after you. So that's labeled on here as adapting to it. Yeah. And then you eventually just boy, that is, now how long does it take to recover from that when you come back?
Depends. It's almost like being really dehydrated when they come back down to Earth. All astronauts are really thirsty, so they want to make sure they're really real hydrated. So that their body's trying to hold in as much water as they can now that your brain says, whoa, where'd all the blood go?
So there's nothing they can really do to kind of prevent that from happening because it's just the nature of losing the pull on your body.
Yeah, it's the mechanism of how your brain works. It says too much blood pressure, too much lower pressure. Throwing switches. Now, and it also means that your heart, but when you're in space, you have that much less blood volume. Cardiovascular system is also working a lot less.
So does that mean your heart weakens?
Yes, it can.
I thought so. I thought I'd heard that, but they can exercise, right?
Yes, you can. You can definitely exercise.
So any ship on its way to Mars is going to have a decent exercise area on it.
Oh yeah, and in addition to that, some of these will have what they call negative pressure. Lower body negative pressure devices. So essentially you're you're strapping into these pants and it kind of lowers the pressure on your legs. So it's artificially making the blood flow back down to your legs so that your brain isn't thinking that it's getting all...
They're like pressure socks. They're like fancy pressure socks. Yeah. They're like all... Now, okay, so that's your blood, but now I know that I've seen the astronauts exercising like a madman too for bone density, right? Doesn't that help with bone problems too? Because that is also an issue.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You get 1 to 2% bone mass loss each month. It's because the weight-bearing bones in your body are there. If you're a gymnast or if you're doing something else that's that's how they can, in archaeological sense, that's how they can tell who the aristocrats and who were the laborers. Their bones are a lot denser because they're having to
no kidding
establish that much more weight. So their bones have to be thicker in order to support that. So when you're in space, there's no mass that is supporting. There are no,
The body is amazing at conserving resources for anything it doesn't need, and if it doesn't need your bones.
Yep.
So we have a visual here, which is just, so I think the first image I'm showing, the first half of the image is you're like a normal human bone, like, right? You just kind of...
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you slide over here, and it's just, it's almost turned thin and brittle.
Yeah. It looks a lot like osteoporosis. This is one of those things that, they're trying to combat it in space, and then they can spin it off and say, if we can figure out a way to fix that, then it can help people here on Earth combat osteoporosis and things of that nature that, bone weakening diseases.
Oh, so you figure out something for space travel purposes and might fix something back home.
Yeah, now, for a lot of these physical things can do that, have counterparts on Earth.
Can I ask you like a totally boneheaded question that's just totally out of left field? But
sure.
Is it really that impossible to generate gravity? Is there some practical reason why we can't spin the thing?
Physics, where we say, gravity is the pull of two objects. So you have a mass,
right,
and it's pulling. We have gravity because Earth is a lot more massive than us. So we're pulling on. We have a small gravitational force on Earth. I mean, we're pulling Earth towards us, but it's minuscule amount compared to the amount.
It's definitely winning.
Yeah, Earth is definitely winning.
Good job, Earth.
It has tiger's blood.
Yeah, it does. So why? So I guess I still don't understand. That doesn't make sense to me. Why you still can't spin the ship?
Well, yeah, you can spin the ship. So you were talking about, can we control gravity? I mean, we don't have a switch to turn it off and on.
Right.
But we can spin the ship, and that's sort of artificially creating it. You're accelerating yourself against the floor.
They must be talking about doing that then on a trip of that.
Yes.
I guess it depends on when you go, but I mean, okay. Because that,
there's
once you get there, you would be completely unable to survey the landscape if you weren't...
That's some of the problems with, going to Mars, like we were saying.
Yeah.
You want to be able to be physically fit enough that once you get there, you can actually do it. Because there is no AAA to call in and be like, oh man, a 6-man crew, maybe 2 are in orbit, maybe only 4 are on the ground, but 6 people on the ground.
Yeah.
1 person breaks their leg.
Now they got to help with that.
Big deal.
I mean, maybe at best, boy. So they've got to...
you're down 1 person.
So but really, that's where the International Space Station comes in for that kind of thing, right? Because they're really kind of figuring out a lot of that while they just are parked out around Earth.
Yeah,
so,
and there's equipment that that's also some of the reason why they have the bungee cords on the treadmills. It's not just to keep them down; it's a lot of extra weight. It's the resistance so that they can have to push against that. Their bones are having to support weight. Their muscles are having to work. It's trying to combat that. I mean, Mars is only 38% Earth gravity.
Oh.
But...
Well, so they won't have to work as hard when they get there.
Yeah, but theoretically, you do still want to come back to Earth and be able to eventually walk around.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe. Mars might be pretty cool. I'm just saying.
Mars would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
You might have to do that stuff. Mars is cool.
Yeah, I know. I think so. All right, so that's weightlessness, but one of the problems that we have as a real issue is... I mean, if you want to get there in a decent time, you got to put the pedal to the metal and you got to blast over there and get going. But I know that from my Star Trek that if you don't have an inertial dampening field, you get thrown all over that spaceship. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, it's... but we don't have inertial dampeners.
No.
But I mean, it's like a car. You're driving around down the highway at 60, 70 miles an hour. You're not feeling that great pressure against your chair.
No.
It's when somebody pulls up behind you and you have to speed up a little bit that you start feeling the acceleration. Or when you have to slow, when you see the cop and you have to slow down.
Yeah, I love that feeling.
Acceleration in the other way.
Oh, I don't like that feeling.
Yeah, it's the changing of the velocity that's your causing problem. So it's when you get off. But there's a limit to how much the human body can take. So there's a limit to how much you can speed up.
Sure. I know they've done testing on that too. Like I know, like we've all seen like the clip in Apollo 13 or just the clips from NASA.
Yeah, they're spinning in the circle.
They've done some serious stuff, including we've got a shot here of this famous guy that did this. Who is this dude?
Yeah, this is John Stapp, back in March of 1954. Now, what you have to understand is 1G is what we feel just sitting in our chairs, sitting in the audience. Untrained humans can get about 12 to 17G.
Yeah.
This guy survived a peak of more than 46G.
Yeah.
That is 6 times the force of gravity. So it was like he weighed 46 times.
That's the record, right?
What he really does. Yeah, that is the record. I mean, it caused, he had retinal detachment, he had vision images, vision problems for the rest of his life. But that is the peak of what we got. And that's like one man who was training day after day for that.
After breaking that record, all he got was this lousy Wikipedia page.
Yep.
No, that's pretty cool. So they've put people through the paces to see what the human body is capable of, so they know what they have to be able to accommodate. And and is that within the realm of possibility? Can they accelerate at the rate they need and not crush people?
Well, yeah.
We're not going to get smashed on our first...
No.
You sound unsure about that.
Well, that's the whole point, is that you have an upper limit of safety. You say, we can't have any more acceleration than this. And that means it's going to take, 6 months to get to Mars.
Right.
And that's just how it is. I mean, then, you accelerate, you're heading away from Earth, you've reached your max acceleration, now you're cruising down the highway towards Mars.
Right. Ooh, cool. Yeah. So now that you're out there, you're away from Earth, you're making time, but if I remember...
if
I remember my high school science, you got that protective magnetic cocoon around Earth that sort of shields us from a lot of the radiation and crap out in space. Am I right about that?
Yeah. There's cosmic background radiation. There's radiation from the sun. UV rays, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, nasty stuff coming from the sun.
And once you leave the safety of Earth, then you're getting into that. You're getting into radiation exposure, and all the things that entails. Short term. White blood cell counts and fatigue and nausea and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Longer term effects. There are certain organs in your body that are affected greater than others. They have a...
Oh, interesting. Yeah, you have a great graphic here that kind of covers... we'll put a link to this in the show notes. It covers what organs are impacted the first from radiation exposure. And this is kind of a timely thing, too. This is just kind of interesting information. So they must have shielding to protect from something like this even now. I mean, we've been to the moon and we've been out... we've been out beyond the magnetic field. So they can build something in. Is there a greater... Is it because of the duration and how far away they are that it's a greater risk?
Well, there's sort of a level of radiation that's just sort of out there. So, you can say we can have a level of shielding that's going to block out a lot of that, and you're going to be able, an astronaut's just going to get a certain amount.
And there's a certain amount that they consider as safe, or
there's a certain amount they consider as
acceptable,
safe for space travel. And then you can have one room or one part of your spacecraft that is more heavily shielded. So if you have a solar flare or, a higher burst of radiation that's going to come through, then you go into the, safe room.
So those are real. Those safe rooms are a real thing. Okay. I thought that was just like a movie fantasy thing.
Well, that's sort of, all the longer term spacecraft, they have an idea of, it's going to be a little cramped space. Oftentimes it's where the water storage is, because water is a great shielding.
Oh.
So they'll have, a small space in the water shielding. Everyone crams in their buddies for a couple hours while things pass, and then they get the all clear and they can come out and stretch their legs again.
And of course, when you're dealing with such cramped space and such tight weight limitations and all these kinds of things, that water would also probably be what sustains them during the travel for their drinking and things like that, right? So it's sort of like they look at certain things like that and dual purpose it.
Yeah, in space you have to carry everything with you. There is no turn on the tap. You have to carry your water bottle with you.
Right. There's no chef, there's no McDonald's or anything like that.
There's no nothing. There is no delivery in 30 minutes or less.
The
average American uses about 35 gallons of water a day. The shuttle, a lot. I mean, that's, when you say that, how much water consumption, that's washing clothes, that's washing dishes, that's in your food, that's drinking.
True.
That's everything you need that has water in it. Now, the shuttle has allotments, the International Space Station has allotments that are obviously much stricter than that. The International Space Station is probably something more along the lines of, 3 gallons, 11 liters a day per person.
Really? Were that much of a difference? Geez, that's kind of embarrassing. Wow.
Well, it's the space station. I mean, they,
I guess so.
Sponge bath every, 3 to 4 days.
I love this visual you have here of a NASA food tray. So they would kind of be eating for something like this, and it's even got like grips in there to hold the food down and things like that.
Yeah, you have to have that. I mean, you have to have packaging. So, you can't just, put down something because it's going to float away, so you have to have packaging to hold it down, keep crumbs from flying into your instrumentation panels, you know.
What about when you're going for that long, you air, what do you do for air? Can they replenish that on the trip?
Well, you keep, you're going to keep, you're going to want to have, oxygen, you're going to have CO2 scrubbers. Some of those can be regenerable, some of those are used up as you go. So you have to carry all of that stuff with you to make sure that you have enough for all the rest of your crew for the whole trip. Plus
I remember the CO2 scrubbers from Apollo 13 again. I know. I learned all my space travel trivia from there. Now, what is this though? Yes. You have a link here for like a barley wheat air scrubber?
Dwarf wheat. Obviously, yes, it's real. That is real stuff. If you go to the Houston Space Visitor Center in, NASA's Visitor Center in Houston, they'll have little patches of, different plants that they're growing. And it's what kind of plants can you grow that you can grow miniaturized versions of that can, feed you and scrub your CO2.
Wow.
Multi-purpose stuff.
So this isn't anywhere in production yet, but it's all like proof of concept?
Proof of concept in the fact that they have crops. They're, it's like.
What do they have them now for? I mean, are they planning to use them for something?
Well, yeah, they're studying them for this purpose. They're saying, if we go to Mars, if we have something on the space station, for anything long term in space, we need to start studying this stuff now, and it's stuff we can do on Earth. It's
right. Yeah,
there are
absolutely.
differences in how plants grow on Earth and space, but you can at least get the most bang for your buck out of these plants.
Yeah.
And you can do that through breeding and on Earth.
It looks pretty good. I mean, they look. I mean, of course, anytime I can't tell, are those computer monitors they have hanging there or something? I mean, it looks like some sort of.
I think there might be lights.
Oh, they are. Yeah, they look like they look super high tech. Like, yeah. I mean, it makes total sense, and I don't know. I'm really. I guess of course NASA's looking into this, but I guess I'm just really happy to see that they actually are going down a path like that, because that obviously seems like the most sustainable thing they could do. So I think that's awesome.
Well, that's, if you're going to Mars, you want sustainability. Anything long term, you want something that will last.
Now let's just touch the surface on this, because I think we could probably spin this into an entire episode, because there's a lot here. Yeah. But once you get there, how do you prepare, and how do you land and know how to survive on a completely foreign place that we've never been anywhere? I mean, how do you psychologically? How do you technologically? How do you do all that? Is that? Well,
there are studies here on Earth going on. You'll hear every once in a while about people that lock themselves in a can or in a small lab for so many days. There's a European Space Agency did the Mars 500 project that's actually going on right now.
Right.
And there's a non-profit. So there's government agencies doing this, but there's also a non-profit. Which, disclaimer, I help with them. I'm treasurer, the Mars Society.
Oh yes. I've heard of them.
Yes.
They do some cool stuff.
Oh, yeah. They actually have habitats and stations, one in the Utah desert, one in the Canadian Arctic. In the Canadian Arctic, you'll have a group of 6 volunteers to go up there and stay for 4 months.
Really?
Yes. Now,
and in facilities that are like the facilities would be on Mars?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, it's a...
replication?
Yeah, it's a decent enough replication. It's got one floor, small cabins. It's got a bed, a small desk, scientific areas. So, I mean, these are scientists that are actually going out and saying, I want to do research. I want to test my project. So they'll go out in simulated spacesuits and, try to gather a rock and bring it back and
very awesome.
Stick as close as they can to a simulation.
Well,
sort of test.
I think I smell the perfect topic for a future episode. Let's take like that and some others, and maybe we'll just make a whole episode about just living on Mars, and that could be, maybe like spend a week on Mars. What happened if you spend a week on Mars?
The more time on Mars, the better.
Yeah, okay, all right. Maybe we'll do that in a future episode. I like that. All right. Now, I think that just about wraps up tonight's episode of Jupiter at Night. Now, tomorrow night's Thursday, and we'll be live at 8 p.m. Pacific over at jblive.tv, and it's going to be our last episode of the week. It's Thursday night. That's how we do it here at Jupiter Night, and that means, because it's the weekend show, I'm going to talk about April Fools. And John's going to be joining me, and the chat room, and, of course, Mars Base. I hope you'll be in the chat room, too.
Yep.
So we love having everybody in there. And we're going to do an April Fool's episode. So join us in the chat room live tomorrow. And I want to get your April Fool's either stories or if you have like a favorite story you know about, because we're going to collect a bunch of them together and then we're going to make them into a great episode for you. So, all right, Mars Base. Well, thanks for coming in and giving us some epic science tonight.
Thanks for having me again.
No, the pleasure is always ours. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback about it, and I know people love it. And
excellent.
Of course, I've always toyed with the idea of space travel. I've always thought if you did space travel, you'd want to try to make it nice and comfortable, so that way you wouldn't get stressed out. And so, and I love thinking of the practical issues of these types of maybe in the future problems we'll have soon. And I love thinking through this stuff now, because maybe we'll even see it happen one day and we'll be like, totally called it on Jupiter at Night. There you have it. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning in to tonight's episode of Jupiter at Night, and we'll see you tomorrow night.